Hey guys, thanks for joining me for the episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Sagrada. This is a brand new game from Floodgate Games. It is a 1 to 4 player game that takes roughly 30 to 45 minutes to play, and it is a competitive game, so each player is going to be working against the other players to have the most points at the end of the game and be the overall winner. So in the game itself, each player is going to be playing an artist that's trying to design and build the most impressive stained glass window. They're going to do this by drafting dice over 10 rounds, trying to meet different public objectives as well as their own private objective. And they can also use the favor tokens that they have to activate a tool card each round to give them different abilities or a different advantage or being able to move or manipulate the dice on their area in some way. At the end of the game, the players will enter a scoring phase where each player is going to score the amount of points that they get based on the public objectives that they've met, as well as getting points for their private objective, and then subtracting points for any holes that they have in their stained glass window. At that point, the player that has the most points will be the overall winner of the game. So my opinions of this game so far is that I've really enjoyed it. This is a lot of fun. When I was growing up, my mom used to make stained glass windows, so it was really interesting to see this translated into a game. And a lot of the tools and techniques that she used in there show up in the game as cards or names or different effects. So it was really interesting to have some of that stuff come back up that I remember as a child. And so I would definitely recommend checking this one out. Like I said, the rules to this are very well done. It's easy to teach. I've had a chance to play this one with my wife as well as our friends and have had a lot of fun with it. Even then, me and my wife have been able to bust through this in like 20-25 minutes, so it's even faster than the game sometimes says that it will be. And there's a lot of strategies to this one. I was actually really surprised as I was getting into it how much strategy there really is by being able to plan out where you're placing the dice and following the rules that are specifically set for those dice placements. And as the game progresses, as you start running out of spaces, you really have to start making some tough decisions about using the dice and potentially not drafting a dice, or being able to save your favorite tokens to use those tool cards, and all these kinds of different decisions that really adds to the overall strategy of the game, and also the replayability, as you have different public objectives that are going to be dealt each time, where you're only using 3 out of the 12 that are included in the game, as well as having different tool cards and then different private objectives. So there's a lot of replayability with this as well, which is really cool. And so I would definitely recommend checking this one out. I've had a lot of fun with it myself, but I also want to hear what you guys think. This is just my opinions of the game. I'd love to hear yours. Is this a game that you guys are interested in? Is this one that you guys have played? And is it one that you guys enjoy? I'd love to hear those thoughts in the comment section below. Other than that, let's go ahead and head to the table, and I'll teach you guys how to play. Let's go ahead and start by covering the different cards in the game. So the first set of cards are the tool cards, which are going to have the name of the tool at the top of the card and the number, which there are going to be 12 tool cards included in the game. Then you're going to have a square with a color in it, and this is only going to be used during solo mode. Then you have a picture of the diagram describing the action that you can do, as well as a description of that action. Moving on, we have the public objective cards, which are going to have a blue die on the back of them. Each of these cards is going to have an objective that all the players are trying to meet. If they can meet it at the end of the game, they will receive a number of victory points that's listed in the corner here. And this card will also have a description of the objective that they're going after. So this one is column color variety. And it says columns with no repeat colors will receive the amount of victory points. And that will apply for each column that meets those requirements. So you could receive 5 points up to 5 times. The final set of cards are the private objective cards, which have a gray die on the back. There will be 5 of these included in the game, and each one of these will represent one of the different colors in the game, which is blue, yellow, purple, green, and red. Each one of these will receive, the player that has it will receive bonus points for that color for each die that is in their window at the end of the game. The final cards in the game are the window pattern cards. Each of these cards is going to list the name of the card at the bottom and the number of favor tokens that a player will receive for playing it. On top of that, this also represents the difficulty of the card, so a card that has more favor token dots are going to be more difficult to accomplish. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown of the card itself. So you'll notice that most of the cards are going to have a number of white spaces, which means that any color die and any number die can be placed in those spaces. Then you're going to have the different colored spaces, which means that you must place a die of that color in that space. And then finally, you're going to have the gray spaces that show a number of dots on them. And this is the value of the dice you must place in that section. It can be any color though. So for example, with this one, this 2 here, we could place a 2 of red, purple, yellow, blue, or green in that space. It just must be a 2. For board setup, the first thing you're going to do is put out the round tracker, which is a double-sided board which you'll use at the end of the game as your scoring track as well. But initially you're going to use it as the round tracker, which the game is played over 10 rounds. Then each player that's playing will grab a window pane board. So we're going to go ahead and set up for a 2-player game. So each of our players will receive that. And then you can place their score track tokens in the slots above their color on the round tracker. From here, then you can go ahead and shuffle up the private objective cards and deal 1 to each player. Then you can grab the round objective cards, shuffle those up, and deal out 3 to one side of the board. These will be the public objectives for this particular game. Do the same thing with the tool cards on the opposite side. You're going to deal out 3 of those. Then you'll shuffle up the window panel cards and deal out 2 to each player. From there, each player is going to look at their window panel cards, which are double-sided cards. They're going to go ahead and choose one of those sides that they would like to play. So our player is going to choose this one. And when they do, then they're going to go ahead and slide this into the slot on the bottom of the board. And it will just lock right in there. And the one other thing before they do is you'll grab favor tokens based on the number of dots. So this player here will receive 5, which you can just place on top of your board. And our player over here will take, he'll go with an easier one, so he'll take this one, so he'll receive 3. And then the final thing for the players is to determine who is the first player this round. So each player can grab a dice, and we'll go ahead and give them a roll. So our player over here is yellow and purple. Purple will be the first player. So you'll place all 90 dice into the bag and hand the bag over to that player to start the round. Let's take a closer look at the dice placement rules now. So there are 4 very important rules that you must follow when placing dice on the board. The first one is that each player's first dice of the game must be placed on an edge or corner space along the panel. Each other die must be placed adjacent to a previously placed die, touching diagonally or orthogonally. The third rule is that a die must match the color or value restriction of the space if applicable. And white spaces have no restrictions. So you'll notice there are white spaces on the board. Any dice can be placed there. Then you have the grayed out number spaces, which means that you must place that number dice in that space, but it could be any color. And then you also have colored spaces, which any number can be placed in those spaces as long as it matches the color of that space. And then the final rule is that a die may never be placed orthogonally adjacent to a die of the same color or value. So, for example, if we had a dice here that was red, we could not place another red dice in any of the orthogonal spaces adjacent to that dice. So let's go ahead and take a look at some examples of this. I'm going to go ahead and populate some dice. And then we're going to go ahead and start by placing some. So first off, like I said, the first dice of the game that is placed must be placed along one of the edges, following all the other restrictions of that space as well. So we have a blue one here, so let's go ahead and place that. So again, we could place that blue one in this space here that lists a 1, as this meets the requirements for it. Or we could place it in one of the white spaces along the edge of the board as well. So let's go ahead and place it there. And then let's go ahead and say that we drafted the next dice. It is a red 6. So at this point, we could place it in one of the spaces that is touching or connected to that white 1. So there's 3 spaces that have an option. We could place it in this white space here, the red space there, as it matches the red color of the dice, but we could not place it in the 2 space as the value is different on the dice. So we'll place that one there. And then from here, let's go ahead and say that we drafted a red 4. At this point, we could not place the red 4 in that space, even though it is a white space and meets the requirements of it because it is orthogonal to another dice of the same color. Same goes for if we had a yellow 6 or any other color 6. We could not place it here, as again, it matches a dice that it is orthogonal to that has the same value. At the beginning of each round, the player that has the dice bag will be the first player for that round. They are going to go ahead and take a number of dice from the dice bag based on the number of players, as you guys can see in this chart. So we're playing a 2-player game, so our player is going to draw 5 dice from the bag. Once he has his dice, he's going to go ahead and give them a roll. And these will be the dice that players can draft this round. So starting with our first player and proceeding in a clockwise order, each player is going to have a couple of things they can do during their turn. The first is that they can draft one of the dice from the pool. They can also spend their favor tokens to activate one of the tool cards. They can do this in any order that they choose. So our start player here is going to go ahead and do a draft first. And so he's going to take the 6 here and place it in the yellow slot on his window pane. And there are a set number of rules that each player must follow when placing dice, which I'm going to cover in just a couple minutes here. Now, like I said, the other action he can use is to activate one of the tool cards to use its special ability. But being with this the first turn of the game, there really isn't any need to use any of those cards yet. So he is going to end his turn, in which case it's going to proceed to the next player in clockwise order, which is our player over here. And our player over here is going to go ahead and take his turn. Again, he can choose either to take a dice or use a tool card, or he can do both actions if he wants, or no actions. You can also choose not to draft a dice if you don't want to. Most of the time, it is very good to draft dice as you need to fill up your window pane to gain the most points at the end of the game. So our player is going to take the number 1 purple, and he's going to place it down here in the slot that shows the picture of the number 1. And again, he's not going to use the tool cards, so then it would end his turn. Now at this point, when all the players have had 1 turn, then it is going to go back in reverse order, starting with the last player. So our player over here that took the last action this turn, or had the last turn, is going to be the one that drafts now, and it'll go back around to the starting player. So the starting player of the round will always be the first to draft and the last to draft. So then our player is going to take the yellow dice, and he'll place it down here in the number 4 slot. And his turn is done as he's not going to use tools, so it's going to kick back up to our starting player here. And he is going to go ahead and take this green 2 over here. Then we're ready to move into the end of the round. The final step in each round is the end of round step. During this step, any dice that are remaining in the draft pool are going to be added to the rounds that we just finished playing. So with this being the first round, we would add any dice to the number 1 slot. And if we had multiple dice, they would all go in that section. You would not add those to further numbers up the track. From there, then the player is going to pass the dice bag to the next player in clockwise order to be the start player for the next round. And if this was the conclusion of the 10th round, then you would move into the scoring phase. So let me take you guys through one more round of this. So our player over here is the start player this round, and again he's going to draw 5 dice from the bag and roll them. Well, we have a lot of 6s. Okay. And then he can go ahead and start by drafting a dice. So he's going to go ahead and draft a 6 of green, and then he's going to spend one of his favored tokens to activate one of the tool cards. Now, the first time a tool card is activated, or when it is activated, if it does not have any favor tokens on it, it only costs 1 to activate it. If it already had favor tokens on it, then I would have to spend 2 favor tokens to activate that one. And that continues on from turn to turn. These favor tokens are never removed from the cards, so later on in the game you would have to spend 2 to activate this. And so for this one it says, after drafting, place a dice in any spot that is not adjacent to another dice. You must obey all other placement restrictions. So I'm going to play this green 6 up here in the 6 slot. Then it's going to move to the other player to take his turn. So he is going to draft... He's going to draft the red 1. And then he is not going to use any of his tokens, so then he's going to move on to his second turn as it's coming back around now. So he's going to draft another dice. And he will take the yellow 2. Moving back over to our other player to finish off his second turn. He's going to go ahead and take the 4 green. And again, he doesn't wish to use any more of his favorite tokens, so his turn is over. So again, at the end of the round, this will be docked into the number 2 slot because this was the second round. Then we would pass the bag back over to our next player, which in our 2-player game is the next player across from us. And we would move into the third round. So the last thing I'm going to go over is how scoring works. So our player has completed the game and is ready to move into the scoring step. So we have the 3 public objectives that are going to give us points. We're going to go through each one of those individually and then finally cover his private objective. Now, as our player is getting ready, he notices as he looks through his panel that he has violated one of the rules by having the same number dice orthogonally to another dice of the same value. So in a situation where a player notices or another player notices that the player has violated the rules, that player must remove dice until he meets all the requirements of the rules. So our player is going to remove this yellow dice here. From here, then, we're ready to move into scoring. So we're going to start with this one, and this is color diagonals. So we're going to count the number of the diagonally adjacent same color dice. So we're going to go through our panel. We have 2 dice that are the same color green, so we'll receive 2 points there. As each one counts as 1 point. We have 2 dice that are yellow. We would have had 3 if that one wouldn't have been a violated one. So we get 2 points there. We have 2 yellows here, so we receive 2 points there. And that is it for that one. So that completes that objective. Moving on to our next one, we get 2 points for each of the medium shades, which is a 3 and a 4 of any color. So the easiest way I've found to handle these, which there are going to be ones for the 1, 2, and the 5, 6 as well, is just to count up all of the dice you have of one value, and then count up the dice until you meet that first value. So going through, let's see how many 3s we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 3 3s. So let's go ahead and see how many 4s we have. We have 1, 2, and 3. So we get 6 points there. So we're up to 12. That'll take care of that one. And then finally we have this last one here, which is the color variety. Columns with no repeating colors will receive 5 points. So our first column here has 2 purples, and so that one does not meet those requirements. The second one is missing a dice, so it will not get that there. The third one does have one of each of the different colors, so it will receive 5 points, so we're at 17. The fourth one has a hole again, so we won't receive any points there. And then the fifth and final one, yet again, has one of each, so he'll receive 5 points there. So that will put him up to 22, and that will finish off that objective. Then we'll go ahead and do the private objective. So our player has green, so he'll count up all the values of green that he has. So he has a 6 there, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15, and one more makes 16. So that will put him up to 38. Then we have 2 open slots, so each open slot is going to be minus 1 point. So that'll bring him back down to 36. And then each favor token that you have left remaining at the end of the game will also give you 1 point. So that puts him back up to 38. And so this player has 38 points at the end of the game, and each player will compare their numbers, and the player that has the most will be the overall winner. Well, I hope you guys found that video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you like these videos, if you enjoy what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. It does really make a difference and help me grow and continue to bring great new games to you guys. And I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this game or any other game that you're interested in me covering, or your opinions on it. And until next time, I will see you guys later.